What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel, a channel 100% dedicated to the Arsenal, who, as we all know, are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. And last night we went into the match against Newcastle, the late Saturday night kick-off, just like we seem to go into every match, with questions to answer. The hugely disappointing midweek performance in the first leg away at Porto had everybody saying that we were about to fold again like we did last season, and that perhaps the energy had drained out of us. It was a sluggish performance, it was below par, but it is worth remembering it's only half time in this leg. So going into last night's match, it wasn't clear to me if he would stay with the team that went out to Porto or make some changes. Of course, the changes we can make are limited at the moment. Thomas Partey is slowly returning to fitness, may well be available next week, but wasn't quite ready this week. Jesus, with that niggling knee injury picked up in the World Cup over a year ago, still not quite ready, but did make the bench. Tomiyasu and Zinchenko not fit at the last minute to come in for Kivior, who had a bad game midweek. All eyes on us to see if Newcastle were going to cause us a problem and cause us to drop points and finally be out of this title race, which so few people are ready to accept we're still in, by the way. So in the end, Arteta was only able to make one change. But what a change it was. Bringing Jorginho into the midfield, allowing Declan Rice to play further forward. This game was important, not just because we needed to keep pace with Man City and Liverpool at the top of the table. Not just because we needed to show that we could bounce back from a disappointing midweek performance where we just weren't creative enough. Because our first defeat was inflicted by Newcastle when we visited St James's Park. And it was a hugely controversial game. Not just for the goal that they scored, which could have been disallowed for any of 3 or 4 different reasons and wasn't, but because of the Bruno Guimaraes forearm smash to the back of Jorginho's head, which in any other game I've ever seen would have been a mandatory red card and suspension. But we were told it wasn't aggressive, it was just playful. So I really wanted to watch Bruno Guimaraes come off the field yesterday crestfallen, and when he was substituted, that was all I wanted. I would have taken a 1-0 scrappy goal. I would have loved it, in fact, to have been a dodgy goal that we scored to put them out. In the end, it was just a continuation of the games that we've become used to in 2024. We've now played 6 games, won all of them, scored more than 4 goals a game. In fact, yesterday we became the first Premier League team in history to score 2 goals per half for 7 consecutive halves. Not bad for a team that badly needs a striker, is it? What was fantastic about yesterday's game is it wasn't just that we kept pace, that we showed the top 2 teams that we are still in this, but it was also the way that some of the narratives were exploded. The first most important one is that we can't do anything without a striker. Well, we've now scored the second most goals in the league, and I think you have to accept that if we'd gone out and spent 100 million on Ivan Toney, we could hardly have expected better. It wouldn't have made a difference to these results. The other question that got answered yesterday, or is being answered more and more often, is, was Kai Havertz a waste of money? Look, I wasn't a fan of the signing, but I do believe that as soon as someone puts our shirt on, they deserve my support. And it's becoming easier and easier to support Kai Havertz. Look, I know he should have scored that goal when he's through on. And if he had that lethal finishing in him, he would arguably be worth twice what we paid for him. And so he isn't. And that is disappointing on some level. But when you're scoring 4 goals a game, it really doesn't matter how many chances you're missing. Kai Havertz, what a waste of money. When you compare him to some of the other midfielders that went for similar amounts of money, you start to think, what is this conversation around Kai Havertz? And then during the week, it was Rio Ferdinand travelling to Portugal with the Arsenal fans who had said that he didn't think that Bukayo Saka was world-class. In fairness to him, he said he's not world-class yet. And that's just an opinion, and everyone's entitled to an opinion. I don't know where you fall on this. Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, do click like. It makes such a difference to a channel my size. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. But is Bukayo Saka world-class? I don't know how you measure it. I don't know how you define whether somebody is world-class or not. For me, world-class is a player who would get into any side in the world. And certainly with the Premier League being the best league in the world, I think there are perhaps only 1, maybe 2 teams in that league that he wouldn't be a starter in. So he's definitely one of the best players in the Premier League. He's one of the youngest. He's ever present. He's always available. And what he did again yesterday was showed that he has that moment in him which can change games. Now, all right, by the time he'd scored his 3rd goal in the last 2 league games, it was already over. But that's what you want from a player like him, isn't it? I don't know if he's world class now or he's going to be world class, but I would just say to all Arsenal fans, it doesn't matter. Don't get drawn into this conversation about Bukayo Saka. Because the real question is, would you want to see him leave? I thought it was a really touching moment when he was coaching young players and they asked him to join their club and he said, no, Arsenal's too much in my heart. And when you think this is a player who's been with us since he's 8 years old, steeped in the traditions of the club, hail end to the Premier League and hopefully to silverware in the not too distant future, for me, it doesn't matter if he's world class or not. He is a player I would hate to see leave, and I'm always pleased when he's starting. And then, of course, you have the other things that have been levelled at us, like over-celebrating. And to be fair, yesterday we didn't over-celebrate. It would have been tempting to really rub their noses in it, given how their fans behaved after we got beaten. They could have been magnanimous. They could have said, look, on the day it was an unfortunate goal to concede and you really didn't deserve to lose the way you did. But they didn't. They roasted us for not having enough chances away, even though they only had 2 chances in that match themselves. And the gulf in class between these two teams was evident yesterday. We sent a message. But it doesn't seem to matter what kind of message we send regularly. People will still, this week and next, and until we're actually lifting silverware, will tell us that we're not going to win. They're going to tell us that we're going to bottle it. They're going to use the evidence of the past to predict the future. And what they're not taking account of is the fact that experiences change players. Experience changes players. This is what you see when you bring in a player like Jorginho. He was unruffled again. He allows us to play that slick one-touch passing. We saw Martinelli back to his best, and seeing him come off and look so disappointed despite having had a really good game was just a sign of what a great player he is. Maybe he's world class, maybe he isn't. Maybe none of our players are world class. Maybe we don't really. Maybe we're not going to win the league this season. We're still not favourites for a reason. There's still Liverpool ahead of us, who, let's face it, are the only team at the moment that have the destiny in their own hands. We don't play them again. Man City played them, and there's a good chance Man City could beat them. But the reality is, Man City have only won once at Anfield in the last 20 years. And the way they're playing at the moment, I wouldn't fancy it. They go up against Manchester United in their next Premier League game. And Man United are all over the place as well, losing as they did at home to Fulham. So maybe the run-in's going to be exactly what everyone's predicting. Man City winning every game on the way, and us desperately trying to cling to their coattails and not quite making it over the line again. But I think last night's game was a landmark game for us, because I think finally we can all stop listening to the kinds of things people are saying about us. We don't need to defend Arteta anymore, because Arteta has broken records yet again with a squad that he completely changed since taking over. We are now a team that doesn't just beat other teams. We annihilate them. And if the commentary is going to be, well, you know, when you beat Palace, they weren't very good. Yes, you went away to Nottingham Forest and beat them, but they're not very good. Liverpool weren't quite at it that day. And West Ham United and Burnley are easy to beat. And Newcastle are in disarray. If every time we beat a team, it's because the team was crap, then I think we just keep letting the players on a pitch do our talking for us. I'm absolutely delighted with this year, and I'm delighted with the way the players have responded to Mikel Arteta. I'm full of confidence for the game coming up against Porto and the games against Sheffield United and Chelsea. I really believe. I think people are starting to fear us, and that's where a lot of this criticism is coming from. But let me know in the comments if you disagree. Let me know if you're a fan of another club and you really think that Arsenal fans are deluded again, just because we score more than 4 goals a game and only concede a shot a game at most at the moment. And also, before I go, hats off to Joe Willock, whose goal was absolutely superb. And for the people saying that David Raya was at fault midweek against Porto, I think that's harsh. But nobody can say that another keeper would have saved that. I'm convinced that whatever we do in the upcoming games, people are still going to want to criticise us. Not so much because there's any reason to, really, but just because they don't want to see us do well. And I think we become more and more like Millwall every day. Nobody likes us. Do we care? I know I don't. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Looking forward to reading them. I reply to every single one. Like and subscribe. And until I see you tomorrow, be lucky. Lots of love.